Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi. Are people still required to wear masks in public right now? We see that you're not wearing masks right now. So how is it about the restrictions in the UK right now?
Well, in terms of being outdoor, you never really have to wear a mask when you're outdoor. But as you say, it is starting from the 27th January, all Plan B restriction will be scrapped, including the mandatory mask wearing in indoor venue and also places where public with big number of gathering. But one of which that's still going to be asked or mandatory is because the London Mayor Sadiq Khan has said the mask itself will remain mandatory in London public transport services such as bus, tube, and overground railway station. And I got the chance to speak to numbers of people earlier, and most I spoke to like people, and they say they don't mind to keep continuing wearing masks because we know that aside from the scare of the Omicron variant, we're now still in the depth of winter where you see really usually you really get sick easily because they need to be cramped in an indoor venue and as such. And if they go to restaurant, they don't have the option to sit outside. Some restaurant and places do give you the option to sit outside, but because of it's cold, usually most people opt to get inside and stay indoors. And the moment most people are still wearing masks, although we see slight number of people that doesn't wear a mask in tube or in public transportation, most people are in a way sensible enough to still use the guideline or follow the guideline, or at least until the plan has been lifted up or the restriction has been lifted up by officially by the government.
Well, that sparks a new hope, certainly, but we know that COVID-19 did affect lots of aspects in any walks of life. But with this new regulations, could you tell us more about the economic, education, and also probably the health sectors? Are they back to normal?
Well, in terms of saying back to normal now until we're 2 years into the pandemic, like the term normal is it's vary from one country to another. But as we see the statistic from the government, the number of infections are slowing down, but not at the rate that we think it's been the lowest. The number of people getting hospitalized is slowing down as well. But at the same time, people are still getting infected. People are still needed to be hospitalized. But needless to say, the government decided to scrap all the restriction by the 27th. So it still remains to be seen. But in the economic sector, we know that businesses has missed a lot of opportunity during Christmas and holiday season. And after this Christmas break, I've seen the high street quite buzzing again. I get the chance to spend the weekend in different side of London, and as you can see, even though it's winter, the city has come back to life, and you see a lot of full restaurants and hospitality sector seems to be getting more business compared to obviously this time last year. And in terms of as you guys were saying earlier, the mask would no longer be mandatory to be worn by school students, but that particular restriction or that particular policy actually got a backlash from the parents and fellow teachers. They said although the restriction will be lifted and the school pupils no longer need to wear masks, they will still encourage students to wear masks when it's necessary, because they've seen the number of infection actually getting rapid inside the school.
Yeah.
Right, so Fitria, this is Hair speaking. So our next question. We recently saw Boris Johnson addressing the issue of the ease of the restriction at the parliament without using his mask. Do you think, is this the part of his statement that shows the UK is free from the pandemic?
Well, in terms of that, it's not necessarily a statement in any kind. Since the pandemic began and when the mask was mandatory to be used inside the parliament, every single time a member of parliament speaking, the mask has always been taken off before they put it on again when they took their seat. So it's not necessarily a statement in any kind as far as I'm concerned. But if we see, if we go back a couple months back when the mask mandate was lifted for a couple of months, you see the difference between the Tory government, the Conservative Party backbenchers, they don't wear a mask, but compared to the opposition and the Labour members of the parliament, they still keep continually wearing masks. So whether this is a political statement, I don't think it's necessarily in regards of the move that the country wants to go in, but it's more so of, you know, they think like it's no longer mandatory, why bother wearing it? But at the same time, maybe if you've been hearing, or last Tuesday, the health minister Sajid Javid said that most likely we have to live with COVID like we live alongside the flu, and there will be a need of annual vaccination for people in England if you know, the number of infection gonna be each month we see it.
Well, of course, there's always consideration whether more of the benefits or less benefits of you know, taking this restriction lifted. But how do you see the situation in the country actually? Is it improving? As you said, it's probably not very political, but what we want is actually to end game this you know, pandemic, especially by the entrance of Omicron. Do you think the country is now better, improving?
It's very hard to say, because if I go back last year, this time last year, we still in the depth of lockdown, where the Delta variant is the one that taking over the number of infection. And what I've seen, at least from what they've been reporting in local media, it's very bleak. But although the number of hospitalization is not as high as last year, but people are still very much concerned. If you talk to everyday people, they want to go back to normal life, although they understand that the word normal is no longer as life as it used to. But I think people especially people in England, they used to live with options. You know, the government never really wanted to force a policy upon the people. So at the end of the day, I personally see people are much more cautious, but at the same time, when they feel it's safe enough, they wouldn't wear a mask. And so it goes down to a personal choice. But at the same time, me, or at least the people I know, we're still very, we're still trying to still feel very safe by wearing a mask and making sure that we weigh in the risk and what venue that we enter. But in social life, it's very much gone back to normal, and like and say people like going to high street, people going to restaurant, going to events, private parties are going back. So yeah, it's you can say it's quite normal now.
But probably this is the last question for me. Looking at this easing regulations, UK would be, correct me if I'm wrong, would be the first to take this action. Do you think it's actually for the public's sake, or it's just a merely political move?
Well, funny that you mentioned that because I assume you guys have been following in the last couple of
Yes.
weeks the number 10, and Boris Johnson has been riddled with accusation of parties throughout the pandemic.
Yes.
So people might have said, and some critics of him have been saying that this is another move of him to make sure that the public confidence is gaining back, because as we know, at least now there are recorded allegedly 12 parties that has been going on throughout the lockdown. We're talking about since the beginning of the lockdown. So the number of popularity of Boris Johnson, even among his voters, conservative voters, are slowing down, and there are talks of is there any way that he can be voted out by letter of no confidence that's still being asked by his parliament backbenchers. But at the same time, you know, some people confidently think that this is merely a political movement just to save his seat as a prime minister.
All right. So this is actually really interesting to watch in terms of the updates. And also, thank you very much, Fitria, for your elaborative updates about the condition there in the United Kingdom.
Though.
And please stay safe and stay warm.
She looks chilled.